IVM.
$100. That's all it takes to begin your journey with Bitcoin and Ethereum. No, really. With CoinSwitch, you can start investing in over 100 cryptocurrencies with just 100 rupees. On top of that, there are zero charges for deposits and withdrawals, so you can trade, buy, sell, however and whenever you want. All of this, plus their extremely intuitive interface, makes CoinSwitch the perfect app for beginners in the crypto space. But don't take my word for it. Just download CoinSwitch for free and try it out for yourself. If you'd like more information on cryptocurrencies, tune into a show about crypto with me, Rohan Joshi, my new adventure on IVM podcasts. CoinSwitch, kuch to badlega.
Here's your smart fact of the day. Here's a tricky smart fact for you to start the day. What does K-pop, K-dramas, Squid Game, Bollywood have in common? They are all examples of soft powers that are used by a country to have an impact on world decision making. Yes, that is soft power at a country level. But can we actually have soft power at a personal level? And how do we do that? Let's try to figure out on this episode of Smarter with Sid. The term soft power came into vogue because of America, because of the United States of America. It was just an amazing time for anybody to be a US citizen because they could count on that country's soft power to help them boost their career, their life across the globe. So if you're from Silicon Valley, that kind of carries a stamp. If you're from New York, that kind of carries a stamp. You know what I mean? And nowadays, it has happened so that even if you're in Bangalore or if you're in Mumbai, that carries a certain weight, that carries a certain stamp. And even if you say, hey, I've worked a few years in XYZ place, it has a certain amount of soft power. But what is soft power? Let's take a couple of steps back. It is the kind of power that you have with yourself because of the way in which your resume looks, the way in which your interactions are, the way in which your personal brand is, and the way in which you carry yourself all throughout your life and your career. And that kind of constitutes your soft power. So let's figure out each of these elements and find out what is the core of soft power and how can we start building it for ourselves. I think the core mistake that people do, especially younger cohorts do when they are trying to build their soft power, is not by not recognizing it. I think everyone in today's influencer-driven age understands the power of a personal brand and understands the power of a network and understands the power of the ability to communicate well and the ability to listen well and they're called soft skills very precisely. But the core problem is not in the recognition of the fact that I need soft skills, I need soft power. But the core problem is that I am expecting it to work overnight. I am expecting my network to rapidly give me a job if I have made a connection just day before yesterday. I'm kind of expecting something to fructify because of my changing my body language. I'm expecting something to fructify just because I've started an Instagram account that kind of highlights my creative side, etc. And that's not really the way in which we have to go about building our soft power. In fact, that's the absolute antithesis because it kind of gives an hard edge to everything, a hard boundary. And that kind of is something that anybody can smell. Everybody can smell the desperation when somebody tries to do something like that. I think the best way or the antidote for actually kind of crumbling these soft power boundaries that we create upon ourselves, I must have these many followers, I must be recognized for my communication skills in the next 3 months, etc., is to let that stuff go. I'm going to say that again, let that stuff go. Because soft power is not something that can be built by hard boundaries and by linear logic. In fact, what we need to do is get out of that quarter mindset. Let me explain what I mean. We are judging our corporate life, especially through quarters. Quarterly earnings, quarterly savings, quarterly progress, quarterly reports, etc. And while those may be required by organizations that we work for, soft power does not work that way. Soft power works exponentially and soft power works silently. So whenever, like, for example, you're trying to build your network, you cannot really expect your network to play out for you in a positive way just because you are building connections, let's say on LinkedIn, in the span of 1 or 2 months. No, there's something more to it, isn't it? In fact, soft power is something that you have to get to the root of. So let's assume that you have built a connection on LinkedIn and that person starts seeing the content that you're producing. What is the content that you're producing? How are you engaging with your new and old connections? How are you building that kind of rapport, that kind of engagement? Are you worthy to be listened to? Are you actually adding any value to people's lives? Try to actually add that value for a significant period of time without really expecting anything in return. Now, I know that sounds really odd in today's transactional kind of age, but that is the way it should roll. Because the moment you start doing that, then you suddenly become an extremely hot entity for everyone to consider. So here's my advice, my heartfelt advice to anybody. It is the usage of soft power without expecting anything in return immediately. That is what drives it. Like, for example, if you've learned a new skill, help somebody out without expecting anything back in return. Do that free pro bono work. Make sure that you reach out and make helpful comments for people looking out for some kind of assistance. Ensure that people who are not your peers, but people who are much more junior to you get impacted by the kind of work that you're doing. Make sure that your seniors are always respected, listened to, and also, you're adding a little bit of value. It may be a little bit of information, it may be a little bit of help in a project that they're doing, whatever it is. It is not humbleness, it is not sincerity, it is just a combination of these factors, but something more happens. What happens is that people actually feel that they owe you one, and you come across as somebody that they have just phenomenally good feelings about. And those good feelings, if especially if they come from a sincere place, are going to help you kind of create a network that genuinely matters. Now let's look at skills. If you've developed those skills, try to use them in projects before advertising them. Make sure that those skills are really helping out people before you start kind of tom-tomming them on let's say a LinkedIn or whatever. I don't know why I'm talking of LinkedIn so much, but that's the example that comes to mind. If you are kind of also looking at just building a certain profile for yourself, just keep it under the radar, just keep it consistent, keep giving, and do not expect anything. I keep saying this again because if you don't expect anything in return, there is a certain different kind of communication that is happening to the person who's receiving your stuff. And this is happening at a meta level, this is happening at a subconscious level, wherein there are just good feelings associated with you and people want to be with you. People are connected to you in a very positive way coming from a good situation. And that is gold. I tell you, that is absolute gold. In fact, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you were in a meeting wherein you were not just looking out for being heard, but also praising somebody out of turn just for the sake of the fact that that person has done a great job? Or just looking and being inclusive in those meetings without expecting them to be inclusive of you? When was the last time you actually did that from a position of strength, not from a position of trying to get something out? Because when you're trying to get something out, people do recognize that. But when people hear sincere praise and sincere appreciation or sincere contribution, that just completely changes the equation. That is the building of soft power. Then people start admiring you as a person. People want to be like you. People want to model your activities, model your, the way in which you behave. And that significantly alters the course of events. People actually start, connecting their neurons to your neurons. There's something called mirror neurons. I don't know how true or false it is, but eventually people start reflecting your behavior in strange and wonderful ways. And then magic happens. So there you have it. Soft power is not logical, it's magical. I think I'm quoting, or rather I'm stealing a quote or kind of paraphrasing a quote from Rory Sutherland, who talked about how it is, better to be magical than logical in today's world. And developing your soft power is a bit of magic that you should try to build in your own life. If I can only emphasize, the way in which you build your soft power is through a steady increment of wonderful work that you do, so that when you leave the room, your soft power's absence is actually felt. And when you enter a room, your soft power enters the room before you do. How about that? I hope I have kind of managed to articulate my feelings about soft power. It is much more than building a personal brand. It is much more than having a network. It is about a way of being. It is about a way of actually standing for a set of values. Maybe connecting with a movement or a cause or an interest also helps, but don't do it from a transactional perspective. I hope you like this episode of Smarter with Sid. Many more to come from where this came from. And hey, if you like what I'm saying here, do connect with me on Instagram or on LinkedIn, where I'm the traveling professor. I explore things in a fun way on Instagram. On LinkedIn, I'm probably a little more serious. But the essence is to actually add some value, make all of us 1% smarter as we tackle with our work and life. Until next time then, my friend. Until next time.
Hey everybody, it's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast, DJ and Ashwin discuss how Pakistan won against India, ending its 29-year World Cup streak, and discuss some of the other matches from the Super 12 round of the T20 World Cup. On Agla Station Adulthood, learn all the skincare essentials with dermatologist Puneet Sarogi as Ritasha and Ayushi ask him about skincare routines. On Hans Fani, listen to an interesting story, Dustbin Mein Peek, about how the government targets the common man to divert people's attention from political corruption. On the Habit Coach Kannada podcast, Ashton introduces the concept of a sleep primer and how we can use it for better. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Slay Coffee, Intel, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Habits? Routines? How exactly do they help us get better? Well, to simplify it for you, tune in to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashton Doctor, and I'm going to be here to help you get better daily with some simple, easy-to-do habits that you can easily adapt to your life. So tune in to the Habit Coach podcast from Monday to Friday, because I believe that awesome lives start with awesome habits.